Minnesota, you beat the snow. You did it. Yay! Thank you so much for coming. I can't just tell you how much we've anticipated this and worked for this, and really hope to show you guys the best KeyForge time possible this weekend. So thanks again for coming. And also thanks for the crew who put this together at relatively short notice. It was just such an awesome time. So appreciate you coming in and listening to this little talk too. I hope we can learn some things, have a few laughs maybe, and we'll talk a little bit about the event itself and hopefully give you some instructions. At the end of my presentation, Jeremy, who's handling our tournaments, he's going to have a small, just a small clarification or a small instruction about how you actually register using the barcodes and QR codes, etc. Also, after this talk, we will have some snacks and drinks for everybody in the room next door. Okay. So as we think about KeyForge, you know, I have quite a long emotional story related to KeyForge. So I think the first thing I would ask myself as I'm standing here talking to you today is, how did we get here? How did this happen? What brings everybody together here today, right now? That's an interesting story that actually starts back in 2016. So in 2016, I had arranged a meeting. Somebody was going to come visit us, and this was the itinerary of that meeting. So they arrived at night from Seattle. We had dinner. The next day was going to be the big presentation. Of course, who arrived was this guy, Mr. Richard Garfield, who wishes you all hello and a happy weekend, by the way. This is what Richard looked like when he was actually at our office in 2016. I was looking for pictures of him. They varies in hats and beards and all sorts of things. So this is the closest thing he looked to us that morning, presenting to us. Right across the parking lot, actually. You see the Asmodee sign across the parking lot? That's used to be the offices, and he was right in there. And he, of course, presented this game that he called Technic. Okay? You can almost hear dropping. We, of course, had done many, many games over the years as Fantasy Flight games, and we had done complicated games, games done with apps, games done with complicated manufacturing, complicated logistics. But this was something else. I mean, he started showing us, oh, by the way, every deck is unique, every deck has to be different. Oh, and yeah, every name is different, and of course, every illustrations on the cards are different. And this is the game, this is how it's going to work. We kind of felt like that. And we said, this is nice, Richard, and started thinking about this. You know, we have a lot of people to take care of. We have other games we're doing, and what's going to be involved in this. You know, our hair on fire, thinking, well, number one, it's going to require a whole new development paradigm, because you're talking about every deck has to be playable and different. I mean, normally you would give people a deck of cards, you know what's going to be there, or you allow them to mix it, or you allow some sort of other customization, but this was a deck, you got to play it, and it's got to be fun. Got to be fun was where we came from. Richard wanted to be crazy. So that's what happened, and we thought, okay, it's a whole new game development paradigm. That's a challenge. It's going to require an entirely procedure-generated software engine from scratch that nobody's ever built. It's going to not only involve the logic of putting it together, we have to have a database for all the elements, we have to have a rendering engine that puts these guys together. Okay, interesting. It's going to have deck tracking, so the unique decks, that means we can pair the unique deck with the unique customer, and so we can track who owns what, and it'd be fun. So that's what we've got to do too. Interesting. So it requires an entirely new manufacturing team. Nobody had done this before. Nobody. We call some factories. No, they've never done anything like it. And yeah, there's some new machines that come out that can potentially do it, but we had to figure out how to do it. All right, so new manufacturing techniques, deck tracking, software generation, completely different way of designing the game. Of course, we have to have substantial organized play, we have to have marketing, we have to have all those things for something like this, and then we have to make it all worthwhile, you know, we better have a lot of stock, substantial amount of stock. That's a big amount of risk. So there's another risk here involved in all this stuff too, we have to understand is not entirely illegitimate. So all of our warning signals are going off, you know, all of these things, you know, this, okay, never done before, all the software has to be created frustrated. New manufacturing techniques, we don't know if we can make it. We have to take people away from other stuff. And so the only thing we could think of as a rational company is to, in the end, let's do it. We have to do this. Richard Garfield has come to our home here in Roseville, Minnesota, and he's pitched us something crazy. We love it. We have to do this. If we weren't here to do that, what were we here to do at all? We thought. So we went ahead and did it. So when you make a game, and we've made it a lot at this point, we had a really kind of a process down for how it's supposed to be done. And so we're thinking about KeyForge, which is the name that we came up with later. We didn't really like Technic. We like to do something else. And so KeyForge, the studio, came up with that. So, okay, well, now we're March 2016. We want to do it. We're going to negotiate with Richard. Let's put a timeline in process to see when this is going to happen. Normally, we could put a pretty complex game together in a year if we put a big enough team on it. This was not going to work. This is going to be longer than that. So we figured a year and a half we were going to need to put into this. Fortunately, we had the software teams that had developed apps before. We had design teams that we were very, very capable and interested in doing new things. Yeah, we think we could do this. So normally what you would do then, and Michael Hurley, our big producer back there, will break it all up into little bits, saying, okay, this is design phase, art, you gotta have budgeting, you gotta do manufacturing. And of course, there's a whole other level now, software, all these things we have to do. So, but we thought we could break it up reasonably well, but for something like KeyForge, you never just quite know what the box of chocolates entails. So normally we would have a regimented scheme of elements and benchmarks from A to Z. It would kind of look more like this, really, in the design development. There really was several times, maybe around here and there, where this game really was close to dying. We're like, I don't know if we can do this. Richard wanted something else from the art style, and we wanted something different from the art style. But it came together, after all of these loops and circuitous things, and we were able to get it done and released at Gen Con, which was awesome. That was our plan all along. But there was a problem, of course. It wasn't really 2000. Oops. Wait. Let me take that back. Hold on a second. Technical problem.
What happened in 2020?
Yeah, we don't get 2020. Oh, we're back. All right, so let's look at the loop again. All right, here we go. We're having a little problem with my little silly remote here. So of course we end up releasing at Gen Con, but if anybody who knows the history of knows that it was 2018, not 2017. For 2.5 years we had to develop KeyForge, which I'm pretty sure, don't know if anybody can come and correct me on that, I'm pretty sure that the longest, most expensive development time for a hobby game is not a digital game related that I've ever heard of. So this was quite the testament of stamina and will and let's get this done, and of course attention to detail all along the way. So August 2018 we released it, and it's just fantastic. Okay, we took all these risks, it was a long march to get there, and it's well received. Now I should say that it wasn't to be predicted, because pretty much very few retailers and no distributors really believed in it. They're like, what? It's a deck, everything's unique. I don't know what that means. What does it mean? I can't customize it? What? That doesn't make any sense. They were so new, they're ahead of their time. We hope not too ahead of their time, because that can cause problems too. But forging ahead, we did it, and we printed what I call a career-threatening print run. And so we did a lot, and it was a very big print run. It was like 40,000 displays of Call of the Archons for something as untested as this. Even our financial guy came in and said, what are you doing? This is crazy. And I think only I at that point could have signed off on that kind of level of commitment. But we did it, and we sold out almost immediately. This was my last sort of hurrah, and I was very proud of it, because I actually left the organization at the end of 18. So this was, when I left, it was just awesome. It was an awesome thing to leave and have done after all the loop-de-loops we had to face. So, and I think the team did a great job. The developers did a great job, and they kept developing expansions, and so they came out, and then they went through various processes and thoughts about how do we make a good KeyForge expansion, what makes a good assortment. They discovered things and made innovations along the way. They ran into some headwinds in 2019, and maybe if you recall, there was a fairly substantial, I wasn't sure what happened exactly. There was a fairly substantial reorganization in Fantasy Flight, and a lot of the teams got cut and moved around, and I think that caused some discombobulation in the actual development times and design processes. So, and I think that caused some to start setting some delays into the process, as they started losing some of those people with all the institutional knowledge of the game. But I think the game was proceeding pretty well until the Days of Doom that I previewed so elegantly. Now, everybody here was affected by these Days of Doom. That wasn't just hobby game industry or Fantasy Flight or me. Everybody here had this, was affected by this. So, but I'm going to tell the story from the point of view of the tabletop gaming industry here. 2022, this is not a surprise. In March, just as I was getting back from the GAMA trade show, at that point, we of course run into the pandemic of our lifetime, we hope. It causes, in April, lockdowns, and as you all know, some companies, it affects less, some companies it affects more, but when you have to take a development team that are working together, play testing, printing out, working, collaborating, and all suddenly, boom, you have to be home. We have to figure out how to do Zoom, we have to figure out how to play test via Zoom, and it just causes an enormous disruption, of course, as it did to you as well, in your own careers and lives. We had organized play canceled, so this is like one of the bloodstream of community, right? Where you get together, you play, you have fun, you aspire. Gone. Gen Con, one of the pillars where we meet, we get inspired, we get together with fans, we hold events, we meet our colleagues. Gone. Essen, the big spiel in Germany, same thing as Gen Con. Gone. All these things are gone. And so this causes, of course, a lot of delays and problems, not just for our industry, for everybody. I'm not trying to argue for any particular sympathy, but this is part of the history of where KeyForge had to wade through. So in 2021, I think we're all hopeful going into that, 2021. I remember sending a little meme photo of somebody poking like a broomstick at the door that said 2021. Just check and see what's in there. Okay, we all had big hopes 2021. For KeyForge in particular, 2021 wasn't particularly great. Starts off pretty shitty, actually. That wasn't good at all. So we're all just starting to fight back, and KeyForge, gets batted to outer space, really. This is a long story that I can't personally get into, but the birthing engine of every single deck you've ever played is gone. It's just gone. I didn't really know about this until a few weeks after that when I started hearing about it. And I couldn't believe it. All of those pain and suffering and loop-de-loops that we did, and the trial and error and bug fixing, all that stuff. Poof, gone. So in March, I meet with one of my good buddies from Asmodee, and he hints that, maybe FFG is not ready to undertake that journey again. Maybe they've had their fun with it, and maybe they have other priorities, and they kind of are looking to see if there could be a home for KeyForge with Ghost Galaxy. Ghost Galaxy wasn't really a thing back then, because I actually had a non-compete agreement after I left Asmodee. For a few years I wasn't allowed to make any games, so I did other stuff like software and other fun things. And we'd actually started building a company that we had founded called ForgeFire, because I was so inspired by what happened with KeyForge. We can create procedural games, you can have all these digital printed games where everything can be unique, can be personalized, can be special, can be intelligent. I was really fascinated by that. So one of the things we try to do is build a software engine called ForgeFire, which is not really an engine that makes KeyForge. It's an engine that can make all kinds of games like KeyForge. So it's very abstract and have all these ways to put in. There's a database engine, logic engine, a rendering engine, and it's complicated stuff. But I was fortunate that I had the crew that had built most of this, because after I left, they didn't really want the database and programming people. That wasn't in their plans, and so they fortunately, I was able to, and this was all amicable with Asmodee. Everyone was happy about it. But guys like Francesco here, who I'll introduce you to later, came over and started helping me build various kinds of software. We never knew that we would have an opportunity to get KeyForge, because that would be amazing to think about, but that was never something that entered our mind until the dire early year 2021. So I'm approached and say, do I want to buy KeyForge or take it over, or do we want to do something? And I said, yeah, I'm a little worried because it's been so long and so much disruption had happened at that time. But that was kind of the general state of the world. So yeah, let's do it. And we negotiated back and forth, and going all the way to June, and in the end, I think Asmodee FFG sort of backs away again, saying, no, we can't, no, we don't really want to give it away, we don't really want to sell it. Okay, fine. Okay. Apparently they had a plan, there was something else going on, they felt they could salvage it, and I really mean that. It wasn't, I don't think they were faking, I think they were genuinely wanting to save this game and bring it back. And so it ceases and it disappears from my memory or from my awareness for quite a while, until we get to the much more sunny year of 2022. So I was wondering if this is going to be too bright for everybody. Right. Put on your shades. We approached us again in January, and whatever they were planning fell through or didn't work, and you know, the way life is, we all want to do things, and then 6 months down the line we realize that, I just can't get there. I wanted to, but my eyes were bigger than my stomach. So they approached us again. This time, of course, everything is much more quick, everything is much more fast-paced, much more willing, except actually on my side, because we're like, well, you wasted another year. You know, Dark Tidings came out, but is there still a fan base left? You know, I mean, it's trying to revive the game is tough. You know, because there's so many new games coming out. Why does anybody want to turn around and go back to the old? So it's pretty risky on us, and so we negotiate that in. But in the end, how could we not do it? This is such an awesome game. We loved it. We were a part of it. And we wanted to really give it a chance. And it also fit really well in with our Forgefire company. So why not? Let's try it. So of course in June, we acquired KeyForge. And we tell you a few weeks later. And that's all good news to everybody, and everybody's happy there's communication and so on and so forth, really excited. But there's an awful lot of work. We have already started, even in May as this was closing, to start working on how do we roll KeyForge per se into Forgefire, how do we get the software back and rolling, because we know that no matter how many games we want to make or how much risk we want to take in inventory, if we can't birth a single deck out of the software engine, it doesn't matter, it's all for naught. So we start working on that. We also start working on a philosophy for how do we, before we commit, all the chips, how do we know whether the audience is still out there? Because everything's very fragmented still. We can look at TCO and see what the numbers are. They're definitely much lower than they used to be. We looked at some conventions. Are they still doing KeyForge events? No. How do we figure this out? And so we decided to go down a road we'd never gone before, which is crowdfunding, which is a very common thing these days. I've done it before, which is actually kind of exciting because, I felt like a newbie for the first time in game publishing for a long time, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, let's do that way, because then it allows us to figure out whether people really want this game or not. Fundamentally, that's it. And so, of course, thanks to you, everybody here, by the way, we here backed our game campaign. You are the saviors of KeyForge. In September, KeyForge is effectively to us for buy. It outpaced far what we thought would be done. We had a number in mind, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but saying if it goes below that, then we're in trouble. If it goes above that, we'll stick it in there. We'll hold tight, we'll go in there, and that, of course, well exceeded it. In fact, we were tempted later on, so we have to make up more stretch goals so we can get people more stuff. And if you read some of my reports, we have found that, no, we're not going to do that, because we're just going to, everything we put into stretch goals and all these things just to get a little more money out now is actually going to prolong and make more complicated our ability to get actual wins of exchange out to people. So everything that would delay that by a week was we felt was very expensive, and so we decided to keep it reasonably tight. So, and of course now we're in November, and I'm really, really excited to say that the software is rebuilt. It's done. Thanks to this guy. You have the results of all this work, and it only took us about 3.5 months to build this because we were fortunate enough to have built all this infrastructure for ForgeFire already. Okay, so fantastic. So it was rebuilt. What?
They ransomware.
Oh, we'll back it up. What are you talking about? Have we backed it up yet? I think so. And of course, that brings us to where you are today. So what's going on? What are we doing? We've had this journey. This brings us to today. There must be more stuff going on than that, and indeed there's lots of stuff going on. So I'll bring you up to date with what's happening. First of all, there's this pledge manager thing. I told you we hadn't done a Kickstarter crowdfunding kind of thing before, and this is where it shows a little bit. We thought we knew what we were going into it, but there's a lot of nuances here, particularly on the pledge manager side, and things we wish you had known before we started it, et cetera, et cetera. We're particularly working hard on making sure that we get the lowest shipping rates for everybody. That's probably taken the most toll on us. And we're happy to say the shipping rates that we projected early on are more or less intact. So we're happy about that. That opens next week, provided that you don't bother me too much this weekend. We should be okay. It is almost there. But it's a pretty important thing. And also, we could have probably gotten it released today, but I think Jeremy, who you'll get to know over the weekend, would have been absolutely destroyed with questions and requests for information, and then he couldn't help you here. So we decided to delay till early next week. So, KeyForge data migration, that's not a simple task. If you register a deck, ever register one of your KeyForge decks, you go to keyforgegame.com, register the deck, it checks the database of undiscovered decks, finds it, and allocates it to you. So that's a big database, a big software. Part of what we had to build, of course, going in early on. That all has to be converted, updated, and moved over to a whole new infrastructure, and then we have to have everybody sign in, and everybody has to make sure that they accept our terms, and then they get connected back to their database. This is something we're working on, and something we expect to have done in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So you'll get a couple of emails about this if you have an account on GameZenter.com, asking you to log in, and then verify that you're okay with transferring your account, and you would probably be asked to get a new password. Yeah, all that kind of usual stuff. So once that's done, then it's the last vestige of what's currently on the ASP systems has been converted over to our systems. We're also, of course, doing international localizations, which is something we promised during the GameZenter campaign, and very excited to do it. But it's not simple, and so we have, right now we're actually working on ForgeFire to build in a module that allows for localization, like translations in French, Spanish, Belgian, etc. Winds of Exchange manufacturing, which I'm very excited to say will probably start here next week or very, very soon to the main commercial product. You guys are actually a little bit of a test, bunnies here, because you guys got the first true manufactured product, and you get to play it, and if there's any big problems, please let me know. And you'll get another deck if there's a big problem, but if you find any bugs at this tournament, I would love to know, because we can probably fix it before we start running the whole giant production. We have to finish next KeyForge adventure, the Fall of the House Gormengeist. That has to be done before we can get everything out. And one other big thing is organized play. So organized play has really a number of nuances to it. One of the nuances is when I'm at a tournament, what do I do? What do I play? And we've been involved in that. We've proposed various formats, which we'll play this weekend. We would love to hear feedback on all these formats and understanding what's fun, what's not. because ultimately we won't lock in what the formats will be completely until the end of the year. And this is a very, very important test bed for us, just to make sure that people are having fun and it's exciting, and we catch any major bugs, and we get your feedback. Okay, very important. So, organized play, we have a plan, and this is what we're going to do. So organized play, to me, consists in two different stratospheres. In the casual play, and in the official play. Casual play is something where we're not involved. We help, but we're not really involved. We're not going to come in crawling into your game store or your club room and enforce rules or tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want. But we still want to, of course, create an environment where you think it's fun and you want to support it. So there's two ways we support casual play. One is what we call the Keybringer events. Okay, what is a Keybringer event? It's in kind of a tea brown color. Those are player-driven events. We will create some kits you can get online that has lots of fun kind of activities and things going on with it that you can get, and you can just put in your club. You can play it in your house if you want, or you can go to your local game store and say, hey, I want to run a Keybringer events. The other one is, of course, I named them Vault Keeper events. Any old people realize the pun? Okay. The Vault Keeper events are retailer events where retailers want to run events where they feel like they can add something special and give something special to the community. So these are retailer-driven, motivated events. Okay? So we have Keybringers, that's you fans. There's the Vault Keepers, there's the retailers, and we're going to provide kits and fun stuff for both of those casual play environments. So then we go a level up to official events. So official events is stuff where we now get involved, where we want it to be done in a certain way, in a certain rigorous, clean way, so we make sure everybody's playing in the same way, everybody's interpreting the rules in the same way. And there are really some different stages of that. And if you already have participated in some of FFG's old OP-style events, you'll see some familiarities here. One is we will be running, and of course the casual events are going to be year-round. Sorry, I meant to be on that side of the stage, so I have more stuff happening over here. So if I can't see, then ask me to back up. Okay. All right. So here we go. So what is the first major official event? That's Store Championships. So Store Championships effectively allows your local community that's been playing all year to kind of have a event together, sponsored by your local store. The store will buy the kit, prizes, everything, and you can kind of have a celebratory event locally. And that was very successful for the years that we had it, and it's something that we hope to run in February, March of next year. So we'll be getting information out of that to you pretty soon. Now, if you win a store championship, what does that mean? Well, it means for sure you get the local glory. You're glorious, you're a champion. But you also get a little ticket that will give you a buy for the regional tournaments. So a regional tournament is something that's in blue now. That's run by us. It is either run by us personally, or it's run by us like we do here, or it's run by a tournament organizer that we work with and that we fund in order to have them run the way that we would have done it if we couldn't be there in person. Not every country will have regional championships, only the ones that have sufficient enough player base to do it. US will have regionals, England may have regionals, Italy may have regionals, but Sweden will not. Because when you win a store championship in Sweden, for example, you would get a buy to the next level up, and anybody that wins a regional championship, which we'll try to do in April, May, will get a buy to the World Championship. I'm sorry, the National Championship. National Championship. National Championship in the US will be a Gen Con, and it will be the US champion, but will be determined then. If you are a regional champion, you'll have a buy ticket, which means that you get an automatic win the first round. And as we do stuff in double elimination, I'll explain why double elimination in a minute. That's a fairly powerful thing. So of course, if you win a national championship, whether it's in Sweden or the US or England, Italy, France, Japan, China, you will get an invitation to finally the World Championship. Okay, which will be here again. Thank you. So that is the structure. Okay, we're going to be providing with kits and support for all of these different structures. The blue ones, it's on us, and the green ones is on your store, and of course the casual teal one there is for you guys to get kits and support whatever way you want. And that is what, and then the World Championship will be in November. And that is what we call the Championship Series with a $50,000 prize pool. First time we've ever done a money tournament, but we thought we should throw it in there and show we mean it. So there we go. So that is what we call the Championship Series. And we hope we'll see all of you guys here. But there's one more thing to talk about related to that. And as we have a Championship Series, this all makes sense. But there's really something missing, we feel. Another kind of exciting thing to add to the mix. Some of you may have heard of before, which is the Vault Tour. So, why a Vault Tour in addition to this? Well, this is more of your standard championship series. If I'm in Sweden, where I maybe have 60 players, I will be able to advance and grow up. But maybe we couldn't really put a big tournament that we really got playing in Sweden. There's just not enough players. But there are areas in the world where the density of players is so high, we can do something extra special. In addition to, not that these are not special, but we can put something extra in there, which is the Vault Tours. And in 2023, we will create 10 Vault Tour events around the world. Okay, and there will be 4 in the United States. And they will be in June, July. So how does this all fit in? Well, if you win a Vault Tour, you will automatically get a invite to the World Championship. So it becomes a second path. And every Vault Tour event will have a $10,000 prize pool. So that's our plan for you guys. It's not small, but we're really excited. We're going to have lots of cool events next year. Okay, you like it? That was kind of some of the big, announcements and structure for you guys to have for this show. So what else? And what else is going on? Of course, just to put a little hint, some of these guys are going to kind of come creeping along here pretty shortly. So that's, of course, is something we're also working on. But I don't want to take too much of the excitement away from our wins of exchange, so we'll quickly pass on. KeyForge Celebration 2020. 2022. Go ahead, it's 2022. So a few notes to just help you through the weekend here. So what is it we're doing? Well, obviously we're here, the big tournaments is really sort of the main meat and potatoes. Today we're going to run Archon Seal, and we're going to run Alliance Seal. You all have gotten 2 Winds of Exchange sealed decks for this show in your goodie bag. You can use those if you don't break them. I'll open, of course, at Seal Tournament. If you have broken them open, then you're in trouble. Then you have to buy another deck or 2 at the front counter, which you're allowed to do. If you need another sealed deck, you have to go to the event HQ when you register for them, and they will give you a little slip that allows you to buy some of those decks. Those decks are not for general sale; they're only for the participants of this show. And we also have this concept of Second Ember. Why Second Ember? Well, it's a silly pun on second breakfast, of course. But what it really means is we've decided to do double elimination tournaments, which is an unusual choice, but we've done a lot of tournaments, and I want to explain why we made that choice. Normally, in these kind of card games, you will have what's called Swiss format. Okay? In Swiss format, you usually go winner versus loser pairings, and you keep playing. Normally you'll play 5, 6, 7 rounds. It's actually quite a long format to play. And then whoever has the biggest most wins will then make the cut, they call it, and move on to the next stage. Unfortunately, those tournaments can be quite long depending on the number of participants. And it does cause some serious problems that we've seen over the years, such as you have competitive players that will lose their first couple of games, which effectively is a death knell. You will never be able to make the cut. Okay? So we have these dead people playing, effectively, and unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is that it can be ripe for collusion. We've seen groups collude together if you're out and let them win, etc. And it also creates a problem where many times these people, for maybe for good reasons, but they just decide not to play anymore. And also we have empty chairs, which causes auto wins to certain players that, out of no skill, then maybe it's really disappointing to them. They don't get to play, but they also don't get to prove that their skill was worth the win. So these are very pervasive problems in Swiss, which is why it wasn't something we were looking forward to doing. Now, there's a really good reason to do Swiss, and I think this is the reason, as far as I know, why most people do it. It's certainly the reason we did it. And that is because when you come all this way, from wherever you come, some people are local, some people come quite a long ways from here, which we really appreciate. You want to keep playing. You came here to play, right? And if you lose twice, and you're out, then it's like, oh my goodness, I drove 8 hours and I only get to play twice. And now it sucks I lost, but I want to play more, that's why I'm here. We agree. Which is why we invented this structure called Second Ember, which means it runs just alongside the actual tournament rounds. And if for some reason you have your second elimination, you can drop right down to the Second Ember and you can keep playing. And there's a tournament pool, so there's a prize pool. You get every time you win a Second Ember, you get your name in a hat. And at the end of the Second Ember tournament, which will coincide with the end of the main tournament, i.e. to the final 8 stage, at the end we will draw names from those hats, and so to award prizes. That means if you win a lot, you get multiple prizes. Okay, so that's why we did Second Ember. And so it wasn't just something that was for fun. It was actually it was a tool to really try to solve this issue of Swiss versus double elimination. Okay, so Saturday we have the big events, the Archon Standard and the Alliance Standard, also Second Ember for each of these formats. Then on Sunday we have the final 8s. Okay, now there may be various reasons why you're not here for those tournaments, or you're through a tournament and you decided, I lost, I'm done. So what are you going to do? You're going to go home? No, you're not going to go home. You got to stay. You got to stay. That's why we have lots of fun activities. So first of all, we hope you'll just find each other and play games. But at the HQ, we've developed this series of activities that hopefully will have it be super fun for you to be here as well. Here's a key rack in Invictus. That means that it's basically an escalation where the key rack becomes more and more difficult to beat, and if your group beats it, then that group becomes the number 1, then you get to be the leader. And then if another group now beats the key rack at a higher level of hit points or damage, then that group takes over the leaders and so on and so forth. So we'll see how high we get. Some people are very good at playing against the key rack, by the way. So that's one activity we can do. The other activity is Unchained Duels. Unchained is a weird concept. It was something that Michael came up with actually, sort of as a kind of a wild and crazy deck. We had no idea it would be as popular as it is. And so we're very excited that you have an Unchained deck in your goodie bag. Okay. Also on your badge, you'll see that you have 2 sides to your badge. One says just, KeyForge Celebration. The other one says Unchained. The idea we have for this is that if you're showing your Unchained side, that means you're ready to be challenged to an Unchained duel. So if somebody comes up to you saying, I challenge, then find a place to sit, play your Unchained duel, and then go to our HQ, and after you're done, and say who won. Give the names of the match and tell who won. One particular note, and it's a little bit of a kind of a party mixer. You can only register one matchup or one pairing per. In other words, you cannot have the same opponent twice. Okay, so everybody, you have to find another opponent the next time you want to play an official Unchained game. One problem with Unchained is it's really wild and crazy. You could get an Unchained deck that is super bad. I'm sorry, it can be super bad. And that's kind of the nature of what Unchained is, because it's just wacky and crazy. So if you find one of those duds and you've lost twice, you can go to them and you can ask to get another Unchained deck. We're being very, very stingy with these because they're really kind of a unique, special thing. So if you lost twice, That means you have to play twice, by the way. Then you can go and you can ask for another slip and we'll sell you another Unchained deck, but only 3 times. So then, if you're really bad, you can get, 4 Unchained decks, I guess. Don't do that. Alright, so that's how the Unchained duels work. Okay. We will also, I don't know the exact details of this, maybe Jeremy will tell you later, but we have the casual wins and exchange sealed events. So I think every 3 or 4 hours, if people want, we'll say who's here for a sealed event, and we'll just do a small sealed event. It could be 3 players, could be 10, and we'll try to organize a small sealed event for you. You'll get some little slips that allow you to buy some decks if you so choose, or you can use the decks in your goodie bag as well. So we'll just have some various sealed events going on through the show. If you have any questions, we also have a match finder. So somebody you guys here need to just find something to play with. We want to help you. Go say, I'm looking for an opponent. Okay, so you can take your name down, we'll take your phone number down, and if you find somebody for you, we'll text you, say, hey, Mrs. Dude, come here, let's put we found you an opponent. We really can't find you an opponent, and I will come play with you. Also give them general questions. You know where the bathrooms are, if you want to know, why are the deck boxes bigger than the decks and these things you've got in your goodie bag, all those kind of questions. Ask at the HQ, they'll do the best to help you. We're also looking for feedback. If you want, we'd like to have feedback about how was the event. Is it what you expected? Is there problems with it? Is there things you love that were surprisingly or delightful? We'd love to know all these things so we can make the next event better. So about the event, but also about the tournaments and about the decks and everything. Just give us all the feedback you can. It will help. That's it. We love having you here.